At exactly 7:12 on a quiet Tuesday morning, I walked into my favorite coffee shop, expecting nothing more than my usual cup of coffee. Instead, I found myself standing in front of the register while the cashier apologized for the third time. Every credit card in my wallet had been declined. People behind me sighed impatiently, and I felt the kind of embarrassment every older person fears. I quietly left the coffee on the counter, walked outside, and called my son. What he admitted over that phone call changed everything. I thought I knew about my family. Brian calmly told me that he and his wife, Melissa, had cancelled all of my credit cards because they believed I was too old to manage my own finances. Before I could respond, Melissa took the phone and casually suggested that if I needed money, I should ask them before buying anything. I was 70 years old, had spent 4 decades as a civil engineer managing multi-million-dollar projects, and had never missed a bill in my life. Yet suddenly my own family had decided I could no longer be trusted with my own money. I said nothing, thanked them, and drove straight to my bank. The bank manager, Susan Reynolds, had known me for years. The moment she opened my account, her expression changed. My mailing address had been switched to Brian's house. My phone number had been replaced with his, and my email now belonged to Melissa. Replacement credit cards had already been mailed to their address after my originals were cancelled. I had never approved any of it. Susan immediately contacted the fraud department, and together we uncovered something even more disturbing. Over the previous 8 months, my online banking passwords had been changed, fraud alerts redirected to Brian's phone, spending limits quietly lowered, and electronic authorization, forms added to my account carrying, signatures that looked like mine but had never been written by me. That evening I sat alone looking at a photograph of my late wife, Linda. She always believed that when something stopped making sense, the first step was understanding it, instead of reacting emotionally. Following her advice, I refused to confront Brian. Instead, I visited my longtime attorney, Daniel Mercer, carrying every document the bank had given me. After reviewing the paperwork, he immediately noticed several authorization forms claiming legal meetings had taken place in his office, meetings that had never happened. Then he asked one question that made my stomach tighten. Had anyone recently suggested assisted living? I immediately remembered Melissa, casually bringing up retirement communities several times during family dinners. Daniel warned me that financial control sometimes came before attempts to legally question an older person's ability to make decisions. Rather than confronting them, Daniel advised me to stay quiet while we documented everything. For the next several weeks, I acted exactly as they expected. Every conversation became evidence. Brian wanted me to ask permission before making larger purchases. Melissa constantly questioned whether I remembered appointments, medications, or simple daily tasks. Friends even mentioned that Brian had told them I would probably sell my house before winter. Despite the fact I had never discussed moving with anyone, piece by piece the picture became clear. Nobody had stolen my money. They were quietly taking control of my life. Working alongside Daniel, an elder law attorney, and the bank's fraud team, we assembled a complete timeline showing every password reset, address change, cancelled card, redirected alert, and unauthorized account modification. Instead of planning revenge, I created a new estate plan designed to protect my independence. If I ever truly became unable to manage my affairs, only independent doctors and a professional fiduciary could authorize changes. No single family member would ever control my finances or my home again. When everything was ready, I invited Brian and Melissa to Sunday dinner. They arrived smiling, believing I had finally accepted their plan. What they did not expect was to find my attorneys, the bank manager, and the fraud investigator sitting at the table waiting with me. After dinner, I placed a thick binder in front of them and quietly began turning the pages. Every document revealed another decision they had made without my knowledge. The redirected alerts, the cancelled cards, the changed address, the forged authorizations. Nobody needed to argue because the paperwork spoke for itself. At first, Melissa insisted everything had been done to protect me, but the fraud investigator calmly explained that helping someone never meant removing their knowledge or permission, Brian slowly realized he had trusted assumptions instead of asking questions. When the elder law attorney asked him when he first believed, I was incapable of managing my own life. He admitted it began after my wife passed away. Small mistakes like forgetting a library, book, or asking for help with online banking slowly convinced him that I needed someone else making decisions for me. Looking back, he finally understood those moments were not proof of incompetence. They were simply part of being human. I walked into the next room and returned holding an old family photo album. Opening it to a picture of Brian as a little boy, I reminded him of the countless nights we spent solving problems together. Then I asked the only question that truly mattered. When did you decide I deserved less patience than I gave you while you were growing up? Tears filled his eyes because he had no answer. He apologized, admitting he believed he was protecting me, but instead he had taken away my dignity. Melissa also apologized, explaining that past experiences with an elderly relative made her believe taking control early was always the safest choice. She realized too late that she had confused preparation with permission. I accepted their apologies, but I also explained that trust without respect eventually becomes control. Daniel then presented my new estate plan, showing that every safeguard protected not only me but also the entire family from future misunderstandings. I even announced the creation of a community program teaching older adults about online banking, fraud prevention, and financial independence so others would never hand over complete control simply because they felt embarrassed asking for help. Healing did not happen overnight, but it did happen. Brian stopped making decisions for me and started asking simple questions instead. Melissa admitted her mistakes without expecting immediate forgiveness. Slowly, our family rebuilt itself on honesty, rather than silent assumptions. Almost 1 year later, I returned to the same coffee shop where everything had begun. I ordered the same cup of coffee, inserted my credit card, and heard the approval beep I had waited months to hear. Brian stood beside me and offered to pay, but I smiled, slipped my card back into my wallet, and gently told him I had it covered. This time he simply nodded because he finally understood the difference between helping someone and taking away their choices. That little cup of coffee cost less than $3, but it revealed a truth far more valuable than money. Growing older should never mean surrendering your voice. Accepting help should never require giving up your independence. Real love asks permission, respects boundaries, and stands beside the people it cares about instead of quietly taking control. Sometimes the greatest victory is not proving someone wrong. It is reminding the people you love that dignity, trust, and respect are worth protecting for a lifetime.